So you're just driving along, everything's fine, and then bam, that light pops up on your dash. Service battery charging system. And you get that immediate sinking feeling in your stomach, right? Your mind just starts racing, thinking about tow trucks and huge repair bills. But hang on, take a breath. Don't panic.
Okay, let's get into it. The whole point here is to give you a simple, logical way to figure out what that warning light really means. We're going to walk through this step by step so you can go from feeling stressed out to knowing exactly what to do. You know, the first thing to remember is that this light is a bit of a generalist. It could be warning you about something super simple and cheap to fix, or, it could be something more serious. But the key is not to jump to the worst-case scenario. We're going to start with the easy stuff first. So, think of this list as our lineup of the usual suspects. You've got the big players like the alternator that makes the power and the battery that stores it. But look closer. You've also got things like rusty terminals or a loose belt. And honestly, a lot of the time, the problem is one of these simple things.
So before you even think about grabbing any tools, and definitely before you reach for your wallet, you're going to become a car detective. And for this first part, the only tool you need is your own 2 eyes. It's free, it only takes a couple of minutes, and you might just solve the whole mystery right here and now.
All right, let's get specific. First, pop the hood and take a good look at your battery terminals. Do you see any of that crusty white or bluish stuff? That's corrosion, and it's a major roadblock for electricity. Next, give the battery cables a little wiggle. They should feel totally solid, no movement at all. If one is loose, bingo, you've found a problem. And finally, trace that long rubber belt that winds through the engine. That's the serpentine belt. If it looks cracked, shiny, or feels loose, it can't do its job of spinning the alternator. Okay, so what if your visual check doesn't turn up anything obvious? Well, now it's time to get some actual data. And for that, we need a multimeter. Now, don't worry, you don't need a super fancy $100 one. Even a cheap, basic multimeter will tell us exactly what we need to know. So, here's the game plan. We're going to do 2 totally separate tests, and there's a really important reason for that. The first test, with the engine off, is all about the battery's resting state. It tells us how good it is at just holding a charge. The second test, with the engine on, checks the alternator's working state. It tells us if the alternator is actually doing its job and generating power.
All right, get ready. Here is your first magic number. With the car totally turned off, take your multimeter and touch the probes to the battery terminals. A healthy, happy battery should read right around 12.6 volts. Now, if you're seeing a number under 12 volts, that's a big red flag. It means your battery is either weak or just can't hold a charge anymore.
And now for the second magic number. Keep that multimeter hooked up and go ahead and start the car. The second that engine turns over, you should see that voltage number jump up. A healthy, working alternator should be pushing out somewhere between 13.5 and 14.5 volts. That jump in voltage is the clearest sign you can get that your alternator is working properly.
Okay, you've done the tests, you've got your numbers, so now what? Let's figure out what those readings actually mean. This is where the clues come together and point us to the real problem.
This one's pretty straightforward. If that engine off number was low, let's say 11.9 volts or something, then the battery itself is your prime suspect. It's just not holding its charge like it should. A quick tip, most auto parts stores will do a free load test on your battery, which will confirm for sure if it's bad.
Now this is the classic textbook symptom of a bad alternator. If you started your car and that voltage number just sat there, right around where it was when the engine was off, that tells you everything. The alternator isn't adding any juice to the system. It simply isn't charging.
But wait, what if your battery tested fine, and your alternator seems to be putting out the right voltage, but that dang warning light is still on? Well, for a lot of you who drive a Chevy or another GM vehicle, there's a very specific and kind of sneaky part that can cause this exact headache. So let me introduce you to the battery current sensor, or BCS. It's this little electronic ring that's usually clamped right around your negative battery cable. Its entire job is to watch the electricity flowing in and out of the battery, kind of like a little accountant, and then report what it sees to the car's main computer.
And this quote just hits the nail on the head. See, when that little sensor goes bad, it starts sending junk data to the car's computer. So your battery could be perfect, your alternator could be charging like a champ, but the computer thinks there's a problem because the sensor is essentially lying to it. And what does it do? It turns on the warning light, giving you a false alarm.
All right,
We've covered all the bases. We've got all the pieces of the puzzle. Now let's put it all together into one clear, simple plan that takes you from seeing that light to knowing the solution.
Think of this as your cheat sheet. It really boils everything down. Just find your symptom on the left. Did you see a bunch of gunk or a loose cable? That's a bad connection. Clean it up and tighten it. Was your voltage low with the engine off? That's probably a bad battery. Go get that free load test. Did the voltage not jump up when the engine started? That's pointing right at your alternator. And if everything else seems perfect, then it's time to suspect that sneaky little battery current sensor.
So there you have it. You're not just staring at some random scary light anymore. You have a process, you know what to check, and you have a real plan. So the only question left is, what's your first step going to be? Go on. That visual inspection is waiting for you.